this college football.
Genty, his first touch. And typical Ashton Genty. Look at him go! You can't bring him down! Is he? Yes, he will!
We can't wait for the 2025 season.
Will Howard with a 3rd and 11. He'll throw it. He's going for it. Jeremiah Smith, one-on-one. Game, set, match. Whenever you needed it, you got it. Will Howard to Jeremiah Smith. Biggest play of the game.
And we're counting down the days to kickoff.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
I said no.
Are we there yet?
What's wrong with your ear?
Here is your college football fix, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, welcome back into this Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. 16 days away until Pitt kicks off their season up against Duquesne. Pat Narduzzi has obviously been leading the program since the 2015 season, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Coach, I know we're almost there. Appreciate you doing this. How you been?
I've been doing great. We've been in camp since the end of July. Our kids are doing a heck of a job. I love our football team right now. We're having fun. This is the best time of the year, August.
Well, let me start you off with your quarterback because it makes your job easier when you have one. We obviously know what Eli could do, Eli Holstein, and when he was healthy last year, he played really well, and it kind of set the stage for a lot of excitement around him heading into this season. After seeing a little bit of what he could do last year, how much more can he grow, and what do you think his apex could potentially be?
Obviously, we're going on 2nd year with Eli, and we're excited to have him back. He's a big part of what we do offensively. He can throw it, he can run it, and I think he's a lot smarter than he was a year ago, Zach. I mean, you think about, he was a redshirt freshman a year ago. We didn't plan on him being the starter. He won the job this time of year last year, and just, continually got better as a football player. His knowledge, his competitiveness, his knowledge not only of what they're doing offensively going into year 2, but, what the defense is doing. I mean, he's studying film more than he ever has. To me, that's the fun thing to watch. And, we haven't had a quarterback go 2 years in a row for the last couple of years, the world of transfers and all that. So it's great to have a young quarterback in your program for 2 years and 3 years and 4 years.
And him now being a little bit extra comfortable, it has to even probably give him more confidence as well, right?
No question about it. I mean, 2 years in the same offense, hearing the same terminology, the same coverages that your offense calls it, the fronts and the blitzes and all those terms that a player and a coach have to be in tune with. When your coach says something, you're like, what is that? First year it might have been, what is that? And you don't even ask the question like, Coach, what do you mean by that? I think that 2nd year, all those questions have been answered.
We cover all of college football, and I'll tell you last year, a game that I was really excited for was your football team up against Syracuse, especially with how both teams were playing, and then also your personality and Coach Fran Brown's personality as well. I think we actually reconnected right before that game. And it went really well for you guys that day. And you guys were riding high, right? You were 7-0, and then injuries happened. And unfortunately, end the season on a losing note, the final 6 games of the year. That tough stretch after you guys experienced some success for the guys that are back and with this program this year, what do you think the players could really learn from how last season ended?
I think, you learn from every game, you learn from every season. And I think, when you make a mistake one year, you kind of go, okay, what happened? And I think we've had a long time as coaches and players to look back and say, okay, what happened? And again, we can use the injuries thing, but we had a chance to win. We had a chance to win 11 games last year. There was 4 other games that we let slip through our fingertips that I think our guys understand that. And again, why? There's plenty of reasons why. I mean, I can point to all of them. And I won't point to the injuries as being, we know that's a factor, but everybody gets injured and banged up. I think anytime you don't have your starting quarterback, that is an issue. And anytime you're playing in a bowl game with your 4th and 5th string quarterback, that's a major issue, right? So I think, we all know that, but there were still things that we could have won games with that we did it early in the year. And maybe sometimes it's luck, right? I mean, sometimes you get a little bit lucky and sometimes you don't. So, we can throw all those different variables into the why. But our guys are hungry right now. I think they're hungry. They understand. They know how good they can be, but they understand, number one, we better finish the season. We better finish every game, and we have to win those inches.
And when I think of guys that are hungry, as Pat Narduzzi is here with us, the head football coach at Pitt, I look at Kyle Lewis on the defensive side of the ball, over 100 tackles last year, 7 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, and he could do it all, 4 interceptions too. Last year was so special. I don't think he's a kid that gets complacent, but I asked you about Eli's apex. For him, is this a guy that you think could maybe be a first-round pick down the road with another monster season this year?
Yeah, Zach, there's no question that Kyle Lewis can be a first-round draft choice. There's no doubt about it. His number is going to be as eye-popping. I think people know who he is now, right? I mean, so he's got a target on his back. He's going to have to play with all the details that he did a year ago, plus some. And again, he might not have those interceptions. If I'm a quarterback, I'm not throwing it near him. He had an interception yesterday that was unbelievable on a 7 route, and he tipped it and caught it. Who does that? Like, linebackers usually don't do that. I mean, not only did he tip it, he caught it himself. So he's an impressive athlete. He's got a motor. He practices that way every day. He hasn't changed. And to me, those great players that we've had here, I think we've had 20 picks, 20 draft choices in the last 20 years. But those guys, the common theme is consistency. They got consistency, and Kyle Lewis is that guy that's consistent. So the sacks, I think he can match that or break that. The interceptions are tough. Especially if people don't target you, right? If they don't throw it to them, I think they'll know where Kyle Lewis is and say, let's maybe go to the other side, or let's throw it to corner instead of trying to, slip it in there, because that guy will make a play.
When you have so many players last year that had success, and now, right, they're no one's sleeping on them. They're on everybody's radar, and they get a taste of those big moments. How do you know, and I'm not just saying this applies to Kyle or Eli, just, across the board in general, how do you know if a player's ready to handle that and he can still find that next level to show that, okay, it wasn't just a one-time thing, it can be a consistent thing?
Yeah, we know it's not a one-time thing, whether it's, Desmond Reed, All-American, or Kyle Lewis is an All-American. I think, one-time thing is having a great game against Syracuse and getting a pick 6 and looking like you can play running back for Pitt, right? I mean, that the interception was great, but the return was like, wow, that guy's electric. But like we saw it game after game after game last year. So, I think, when the NFL is looking at Kyle Lewis, they're going, it's consistent. He didn't just have a good game because they threw him the ball and it hit him in the chest or got stuck in his face mask. Those balls didn't get stuck in his face mask. He actually caught him and ran with them. So, and he executed them. People watch tape, NFL programs, GMs watch tape. They're going to see they know what coverage he's in, and they're going to know he did it right. He just wasn't doing his own thing and reading the quarterback's eyes. So, it's consistent. It's just, and again, I don't see him being inconsistent. That's not going to be his nature.
I'll also tell you, I don't know how much you care about this, but I love it as a football fan when a unit has a nickname and then it kind of spreads throughout the defense. And I feel like that's more of a defensive thing than an offensive thing. Every time I read about the Sharks online, I have 10,000 different origin stories. How the heck did this come about?
Kyle Lewis. I mean, I think there's some Twitter stuff out there, but I love it too. I think anytime you have an identity, and really the Sharks is the linebackers. I mean, they're the Sharks, and but everybody kind of attached to it. But the Sharks got to be consistent. We got to do it all year round, and to me, it's about that whole group, and those guys have bonded because of that. And each position on our football team is he's got kind of a nickname of who they are and what they're going to be.
Since we've addressed both sides of the ball here, Pat Narduzzi, on offense, it's Eli. On defense, it's Kyle. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Rasheem Biles, who also had 15 tackles for loss last year and 5.5 sacks. Once again, I'll ask you, what do you challenge him to do now, and how much more room for growth do you think he has with that incredible season?
Again, both Kyle Lewis and obviously, Rasheem Biles, goes by the name Heem. Outstanding players. Heem is, I think he weighed about 212 pounds last year. He's 227 pounds right now. He's like, I walk behind him. I'm like, who is that guy? Oh, it's Heem. Like, he looks like he's different, and he is physical. He's tough, and he's a playmaker. He's a guy that can cause turnovers. I mean, he's got a knack. I mean, the NFL is going to love him and Kyle Lewis because they're always punching at the ball, and they got a knack. And some guys have a knack, some guys don't. But those two are impressive, and those are two good outside linebackers that you're going to have in the game. And I also got to throw it out there. Our middle linebacker, Braylon Lovelace, is another guy that really rotated in behind both of those two last year. And now he's our starter at Mike. So we have 3 outside linebackers playing, with a lot of speed. And if we keep those 3 healthy, they will be something that's not going to be fun to deal with.
Talking to Pat Narduzzi, this world, it's tough to build relationships, especially in a transfer portal and NIL, which things I'm for. So when you see the Western Carolina pipeline for you guys with Cade Bell, your offensive coordinator, then also having him bring in Desmond Reed, sometimes when you're in the transfer portal, I say it's speed dating, coach, right? You may think something's going great, and then it ends up lasting and working out. Other times it may end up being a disaster. How did you know Cade was great to lead your offense, and then Desmond was going to be an exceptional back for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple. C.J. Lee, Poppy Williams. Those are three players, and the great thing about Cade, I knew he was the right guy just because of his football knowledge, and his dad Kerwin is a tremendous football coach. So I mean, he's a coach's kid. So that's one reason. And obviously, after an interview, I knew him. But the thing about Cade, not only is he a great football coach, he's a heck of a recruiter, and he has a great eye for talent. So he can evaluate talent. He knows what he likes, and he's been spot on as far as what and who Desmond Reed was. Now again, all you got to do is put the tape on. After we took him, I was talking to an ACC head coach, and he's like, "Hey, I love that tailback you got." And it's like, it's not like we were the only ones who wanted him. Nobody else wanted him. There was other coaches in the country that wanted that guy, but the relationship that Cade had with really all three of those guys was critical in us landing those. And again, it's about the relationships. Whether it's 1 year, we got relationships with our guys for 1 year if they're here for just 1 year, or 5 or 6, 7 years. Shoot, I think we might have someone for 8 years this year. So it doesn't matter, but that's what we do. That's a Pat Narduzzi coach football team. That's who we are.
Yeah, well, to see relationships win out these days, and I know you could say, oh, it could be a 1-year relationship or an 8-year relationship. It's still a relationship. But when a player like Desmond wants to stay at your program because of those past relationships and what happened last year when he had a bunch of schools basically going after him, it has to be refreshing, or has to be maybe nice to just know, obviously you've been doing this for a long time, coach, so it's been working, but just to see that valued through a player like that who had a lot of interest from other schools.
No doubt. He's not the only one. Trust me, the tampering that's going on in college football now is ridiculous, and, drives me nuts, to be honest with you. So, there's a bunch of guys that have gotten offered more money to leave and go somewhere else. But I think, that tells you when you have culture, when you're able to retain. The last 2 years, we've retained our guys. It's been a long time since we lost to Jordan Addison, to a Biletnikoff winner. It was kind of, taken from underneath you.
To USC, yeah.
Yeah, some of the first tampering. So, but we've been able to retain those guys that we want, and that's the most impressive thing. But again, if you had a bad culture, if you didn't treat the kids right, if you had a relationship when he goes in the portal where you try to love him up, then that's fake. And again, our relationships are every day. We work on that, and to me, it's being real with the kids and really telling them like it is, and again, just having a real relationship. Grew up in an Italian household. 6 kids. I've got 4 myself. It's all about relationships and people and communication.
So in this new system, and it still feels like you have a ton of energy and you love it, but sometimes coaches, they get fed up with investing all this time and then having a kid just leave because of money, and that's the nature of it. Like I said, I'm pro transfer portal, I'm pro NIL. I wish it was a little bit more structured for everyone involved in this, but the actual principles of it, I'm for it. Do you still, when you go to work every day, do you still love this as much as ever? And this is something that, when you get closer to 60, sorry to date you and age you there, coach, this is not anything that you're thinking of walking away from anytime soon.
Heck no. I mean, this is what we love. And I told you, August is the best time of the year. Okay. Probably the worst time of the year is when that portal does open. And I'm pro portal, I'm pro NIL, I love it all. But like, the control is obviously something that we need, getting rid of the tampering. It's one thing if a kid wants to leave on his own, but to have someone, dangle stuff in front of them, it's like, what are we doing? I mean, Gavin Bartholomew had a bunch of money to go to Georgia a year ago, and, he stayed right here. And obviously, he's up with the Minnesota Vikings now. So every year it's the same thing. But it's those relationships. And again, it's more than money. And that's what I try to, relate to our kids. It's not about the money. I've turned down a bunch of head coaching jobs, a bunch of DC jobs to go down to the SEC. Okay. When I was at Michigan State, I turned down a lot of money because of the people and the relationships I had with Mark D'Antonio for the 11 seasons I was with him at Cincinnati, Michigan State. And that's the one thing. I mean, football, this is short term, but it's those relationships are going to last forever. And, to me, that's what it's all about is those relationships and trying to teach our kids and educate our guys. It ain't about the money. It's about where you are and being happy. And I tell our guys all the time, if you walk in this building and you're happy every single day when you walk in here, okay, you'll be an overachiever academically and you'll be an overachiever athletically. And that's what we're seeing out of our players. That's why, we develop our guys. And if you're not happy, it's time to go. Okay. If this is not fitting for you, it's time to go. But, I'd say 99% of the time our guys are happy here. Even some of the guys that go in the portal, they kind of have to go in the portal. Sometimes, it's got to be a better fit.
I'll tell you, when I saw your schedule come out, and I know a lot of people, right, they circle Notre Dame, they circle Miami. But for me, I love the backyard brawl. And now it has a new wrinkle in it with Rich Rod getting back into the fold. Just how about him going back to West Virginia?
Yeah, I'm like you. I look forward to every one of those games. I got them all circled. I got a schedule on my wall over there that you can't see right now that I got every game damn circled because they're all important. It starts with that Duquesne game at Central Michigan, but our guys will certainly be cranked up, to go down and play a great West Virginia football team in a great atmosphere. They're gonna cuss at us. They're gonna throw things at us, and there'll be some choice words down there, it is what it is, I guess, but it'll just fire us up. So everything that gets thrown at us, everything gets said, is just fuel to the fire for our guys, and that's how we'll go down there and play.
And you being around this game for a long time, right? The college game got a new wrinkle to it with arguably the most successful head coach of all time in the NFL joining your conference in the ACC this year, in Bill Belichick going to UNC. Has that even sunk in that, I know he's not on your schedule this year, but that Bill Belichick will be on a UNC sideline?
Yeah, it's sunk in. Again, we don't play him, so we're not focused on it. But I'm not one of those guys. My dad was a coach. I'm a coach's kid. I'm not in awe and like, oh my God. It's not a movie star. It's a football coach, and he's done the same thing that we've done for many years. He's had a lot of success. He had great quarterback up there, Tom Brady. I would say there's probably more of an awe of like Tom Brady and how he plays and what he does, as opposed to the guy that's coaching. Because all great coaches have great players, right? Coaches don't do it by themselves. They got players that can play, and Bill Belichick's an outstanding football coach, and I'm sure, and I know he'll have a lot of success down there. So it's fun to have him in there, but it is what it is.
Last thing I'll ask you, and I don't know if this annoys you or not, and I don't really know how everyone ranks all these teams all the time and all that. I think you guys have a good team. Maybe with how it ended, some people are holding that against you leading into this season. But when the ACC poll comes out, and I saw you guys were ninth, does that do anything for you, or you just sit there, you laugh and go, we're going to prove a lot of people wrong this year?
You know what? I laugh. It doesn't do anything for me. Those guys don't watch video. They don't sit in meetings. They don't know who our kids are. I have media, ask me down at Amelia or at, in Charlotte, our ACC media day, where should we pick you? I'm like, dead last. Give me dead last. I'd love to be the underdog. They can disrespect us on purpose or by accident. It doesn't matter. When we were ACC champions, and we've been in the championship game two of my 10 years, it's about what it was when I was at Michigan State, when D'Antonio did such a fantastic job. And you can't get there every year, but there's a lot of people that would love to be in that championship game. So we get disrespected all the time. And you say we're a good team. I take that disrespect because I think we got a great football team if we stay healthy. And, but that's all just fuel for the fire. And that's kind of how our guys are going to play, with an edge and use it that way. But we're well coached. We're smart. We're physical, and we're tough. And that's how the game's played. And we got to stay healthy doing it. And at the end of the year, we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm excited to see how it unfolds this year, Coach. Appreciate you jumping on board. Always appreciate the energy and the time with us.
I appreciate it. Great questions today, Zach. I appreciate it, and hail to Pitt.